So yeah, and I think the one of the biggest things I got out from just kind of taking an interest in Maori was, and I think this is something our listeners as well as you, Keon, yourself will find really fascinating, is how he and Carlo and the staff use data and kind of what built. He's basically built his own algorithm um, to give them personalized game intelligence for every player. And he calls it an efficiency index. And basically, they've gathered all this data, but they've personalized it to kind of, yeah, it's personalized, customized so to fit their needs, and that's how they feel data should be used. Yes, you get this plethora of data, but how do you make it your own? How do you customize it to fit your needs? And I think I found that really interesting. And so what they've done with this algorithm is basically they can measure the energy output of a player and the intensity of like a given game situation. And so he gave an example of the time at Everton where they measured the metabolic power. So basically that's the measure of energy used of their central defenders, and it kind of confirmed their theory that initially they played a game 4-3-3 and adopted a more defensive attitude, playing in a low block, and they saw that their central defenders had a very low metabolic power compared to another game where they played a different formation and they were very aggressive, high line, completely different attitude, and the metabolic power there was very high for their central defenders. So they could actually measure that intensity output. And he mentioned that they get that data like on game day while they're there in the stadium. They have access to that data and can see it. And so that's the type of like minute detail and like analysis that's really going on game day that we don't see or we don't know about. And like maybe we're questioning a sub, but that's what they have in the background that's kind of giving them that detail. And it's just I found how they use data. Like he said, quote, you can have all the data you want. The physical ones we especially use that live to understand if we are performing at the desired intensity. The technical ones we try to filter and analyze according to our needs, end quote. So I mean, that tells you right there that the physical data that they're using that in training and game days as much as possible. And Maori actually said that Ancelotti is very open to these new methods. He incorporates these new methods and he trusts his coaching staff to kind of handle this for him because he knows that he's only one man. He's going to have to delegate and he can't handle everything, but he recognizes how the game's evolved. And I'll read another quote from Mari. He says, quote, I think the coach deserves great credit for adapting to the evolution of football, which has changed a lot from its beginnings to today, especially in terms of the working methodology. We often discuss the profound differences that his work has undergone from the days of Reggiana to today. He leaves us collaborators a lot of freedom. If you don't delegate something to those around you, it becomes really complicated because you have so many tasks within a single week that you just don't have the time to follow everything well. In general, the cycle of information exchange between our staff is always continuous. We are so close that we can deal with the issues of every single match in a very direct way without having to worry about what they say and without a coach having to worry about what they say or how they say it, end quote. So there's kind of picking up on what we talked about right at the start. Like Ancelotti's open to these new ideas. He's bringing these in. He's trusting these young guys. They're building their own algorithms. They have their own customized data. Like I found all of that really fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing how not I mean you can talk about Ancelotti's evolution and certainly the open-mindedness is there. It's the ability to trust your staff and to roll with that, letting everyone who's an expert in their particular field to do their thing without managing them or intervening or or just mingling in their affairs. Like you're the head coach of conditioning. That's what you do. I'm not going to interfere with that. I'm the tactician. And certainly like, Zidane was like that too. A lot of Zidane's subs were premeditated on the basis on the recommendation of the training staff to say that, okay, this player should play about 60 minutes tonight. This is the schedule. We'll rest him here, etc. Like this was all factored into Zidane's plans too. It's interesting, and not to spoil too much about my book, but I was just reflecting when I was reading this Maury stuff. I was reflecting on the infancy of Real Madrid in 1902, and one of the one of the people I've written about in the book is Arthur Johnson, who is Real Madrid's first ever goal scorer in 1902. And there's a good quote about kind of what football looked like at that time, and I just thought I'd bring up this one quote, and I think you would enjoy this one. So when Arthur Johnson came to Real Madrid as a British player, at that time football was not even a professional sport really. Like it was just whoever was there could play. And when he came there he was already living in Madrid, and they picked him up and they were like, play here, and he was like, okay, and he immediately was like far and away their best player. And this is one of the quotes that I thought was really interesting. If my massive book document loads. So this is a quote from Juan Palacios, who was Arthur Johnson's strike partner at that time in 1902. And he says, quote, he was the only one who knew what he was doing. We had referees sometimes, but few of them agreed on the rules. They all had their own versions of the game, and frankly, it was easier to play without them. We wasted a lot of time smoking and drinking. There was a goalkeeper who used to sit on a chair in front of the goal line drinking lemonade and just relaxing. When we attacked, he'd throw the chair behind the line and put on this really serious expression. So that's end quote. And that's what football was. Wow. And that's what this is Real Madrid Coupe de Football in the middle of a game we're talking about, right? This is what it used to look like. And managers were usually just really, there wasn't a manager, it was just the players kind of deciding. And this is what Arthur Johnson changed when he came to Real Madrid, because before what would happen was it was like, just showing up at a park and the players deciding, okay, you play there, and they would all chase the ball like an under 5 scrimmage, where the players just gravitate towards the ball, and if there's like a butterfly in the grass, they'd all like look at the butterfly, and it's kind of like that's where the level of focus was. And Arthur Johnson came and he made rules like, okay, we decide the lineup the day before, we eliminate idle talk in the game, we're going to just actually play football, here's the fixed positions, and that's what he brought to the table. And then you fast forward over 100 years later, and we're talking about this stuff and metabolic power and all this stuff, which I'm still not clear how they measure that. Like did you see any more details on how that's actually measured?
Yeah, like I actually dug in, and Maury has written or co-authored a number of different studies. And it is really, I mean, way over my head once I start to dig into these, but like that's the level of detail and the intelligence of this guy, and the level of detail he has in his profession. And basically, I mean, I don't know how they are able to measure, but they've built some sort of algorithm where they plug in all this different data from, whether it be from GPS tracking systems, from like whatever game data they get, and they use this algorithm, and it spits out a coefficient that tells them how much energy a player has produced in a single match. And so, yeah, it was, and like I was kind of digging through some of the other papers, and he goes into like energy molecules and different things like that, and so it really gets into the minutia.
It's pretty incredible. And I mean that sometimes, like, I reflect on how easy it is for us to look at. I mean, we don't have access to that data, but just even going on who scored in the middle of the game and reflecting on, for us to just sit on the couch, farting around, pressing a few buttons to look at a heat map or some silly stats, what that actually takes behind the scenes to get us that information. Like, it's at Opta offices. It's literally like a team of people sitting on their computers tracking everything. And that gets into like gets live fed to us. That's amazing. Like, we really should be so thankful to even be getting that information. That shit is expensive to run, right? And then who scored pays for that data, and we get it for free. Football Reference doing amazing things. So it's good to even just stop and just reflect on how amazing that is.